The following moments may contain explicit language.
It's alive!
Welcome to where the weird ones are.
Every time I speak, I want the truth to come out.
Powerful figures in Hollywood as well as powerful politicians who are in fact not human. They're reptiles or they're lizards or perhaps extraterrestrials.
I don't think it is a human. I think it's a Sasquatch.
Go ahead and run. Run home and cry to mama.
Let's get weird.
What's up, you fucking weirdos? Welcome to another episode of Where the Weird Ones Are. My name is Kevin, but you probably already knew that, and if you didn't, now you do. Today's episode is a listener episode. Joey has been a listener, and he has some stories to tell. Um, so we start when he was a child, some possible Bigfoot experiences. We don't know for sure. He doesn't know for sure. But they are extremely interesting. And so Joey also served in our nation's military. So thank you, Joey, for your service. I really appreciate it. Um, but that has left him with some PTSD, and he does talk about that, and we dig into that and the mental health aspect and all that. So viewer and listener discretion is definitely advised on this one. We do get deep, and it's kind of a touchy subject for a lot of people. So I just want to give a fair warning out there now, before because some of this stuff can be triggering. So I just wanted to let you know before you really got into this episode. Now, I really want to thank Joey for coming on and telling his story, his testimony. Um, it means a lot to me that he chose to come onto my show to tell his story. I cherish it very much. It means a lot to me. Um, the this episode is an emotional roller coaster. There's oohs, there's ahs, there's laughs, and there's cries. Um, so yeah, I just want to, Joey, if you're listening, I'm sure you are. I really appreciate you sharing your life with us, with me, and it means a lot to me, and you're very brave. You're extremely brave for telling your story, coming out and telling your story. It just so happens to be Men's Mental Health Month, so check on your male friends who are always telling you that they're fine. We know they're not. So check on check on your buddies, check on your battle buddies, check on your friends, check on your dads, check on your sons, check on your brothers, check on your uncles, grandparents, grandfathers. Um, I mean that goes for everybody all the time, but it's just this month is awareness for men's mental health. So I just want to throw that out there. And if you are struggling um, with mental health at all, please, here in the United States, dial 988. They are equipped to assist you with any mental health needs. And if they are not, they can point you in the direction to get you help. So please utilize them. They are there for purpose. They're there to help you and all that stuff. So I just want to say, out of all the things that God created, He decided that the world needed one of you. So I hope you stay another day. Um, I'm happy you exist. So But anywho, shout out to the sponsor, Flavors of the Forest, Bigfoot's Breath, raw garlic dust. The shit is mad good. All right, I put it on everything that I can. So it's way better than anything you're gonna buy at the store. I promise you. So flavorsforce.com, that's where you can get them. And if you're interested in following them on Instagram, it's also Flavors Forest. So on Instagram and the website, they have multiple flavors: lion's mane, cranberry, horseradish. They have a spicy and they have a ginger. I knew I was gonna fucking sneeze. So yeah, check them out. Also, check out my buddy Johnny Nitro, Wild Beauty. It's a whipped tallow moisturizer. This shit is mad good. You know, um, just take like a little dab of it. I've been putting it on my face a lot because my face gets super dry lately. So it's like a little bit of a dab. I kind of just put it in different places, and then I rub it all in. And it's just a little bit, and it covers my entire face. And it keeps my face nice and smooth, and oh, it's not like a greasy feeling or anything like that. And it's really nice. So it's all natural ingredients. Um, I'd say the orange frankincense and the cedarwood jasmine vanilla are my favorites. Um, but yeah, check them out. Wild Beauty. So actually, I should probably get the actual. I will put the actual link of the website in the description down below. So, other than that, I have my book, The Adventures of Rizzo and Weird Son Monster Hunters, book number 1, Hollow in the Pines. Um, it's a short story. It's a quick read, but it is the first of a series. Book 2 should be coming out within the next month or so, and you definitely need to read this one. Well, I guess you don't really need to, but you should. It, the first one definitely ties into the second one. So, but if you do decide to read it, please leave me a review. It's on Amazon. You know what? I should probably start putting the link in the description of the show as well. Also, David Don't Know dropped the 29th, so episode 1 is out. Check that out wherever you get your podcasts. Also, check Alice Uncoded out. Also, wherever you get your podcasts. Both shows I produce, I edit, and all that. So check them out. Show them some love. Let them know what you think. Leave them a rating or leave them a review. All that shit. Leave me a rating and review if you feel like it. I don't care. Um, yeah, I think I think that's pretty much all I have to talk about today for the beginning. I mean, I've already been talking for quite some time now at this point, but I hope you guys are enjoying your spring. Summer is just a couple weeks away. So, but remember, 988, it's important. It's important that you stay here. It's important that you don't transfer your trauma to somebody else, because there's going to be somebody that misses you, and there's going to be somebody that is affected by the loss of you. And trust me, we never realize how much we are loved. We will never, nobody ever in the history of ever has ever realized how much they are actually loved. So we can't see it. So stay another day. All right, let's get into this with Joey. Joey's an amazing dude. I hope you guys all enjoy this. It is very brave of him to come on and share his story to begin with. I'm happy he chose my show to come on. Um, he's been a listener. We've talked a few times. He's ordered hot sauce and stuff. And yeah, I'm really excited to have number one. I would have been just as fine having this conversation if it wasn't recorded. So I just, it takes a lot for somebody who's not normally out in the world to share a story like this, to share their personal story like this. And it's important to me to show Joey some love. So, all right, that's all I'm going to say. Let's get into it, all right? Where the weird ones go production.
What's up, my fellow weirdos? This is Jen and Mondo from 305 Paranormal.
And you're listening to Kevin from Where the Weird Ones Are. If you like what you hear, like, comment, sub, and share to hear more. Peace.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode. I have a really great guest, former serviceman, so make sure you thank him for his service. But he was in the Army. Joey, man, how's it going, bro?
It's going so good, man, and I appreciate you taking the time to talk to me. And you have a great audience, a great following, and you had some really awesome shows. And I thank you for taking the time out to hear my little story.
Thanks, man. That means a lot to me. You know, when I originally first started this podcast, first of all, I didn't think anybody would listen. Secondly, I didn't really care, to be honest with you. I really just wanted to have the conversations with people. And shout out to your t-shirt, but Tony Merkel was one of the inspirations that I had for the show, just because I enjoyed listening to people on his show tell their stories. And I was like, I want to do that. I want to listen. I want to talk to people about their experiences. I want to talk to people about my experiences. I'm going to do that. So that's how this show really started. And I had no anticipation of growing it to where it's become. And now it's, I have a production company. I'm creating 2 other podcasts now. Not that I don't record them. I just edit them and put them out for other people. So that has been, dude, this whole thing has been a blessing. And I feel like it's a blessing to get to know you and to have you reach out to be on the show. And it means a lot to me. The fact that you're willing to take this time out of your day to talk to me and tell me your stories, it means a lot. So I appreciate you.
And I appreciate you because, like I said previously before we got on air, I mean, you're so honest and you're so genuine and open-minded to whatever any guest brings, and that, you make it a place where we can have a safe conversation, an open and honest conversation where I don't feel like I'll be judged for anything I say. And there's not that many people that are willing to do that. So that says a lot about you, Kevin. And from what you've said about your life, I mean, that speaks, in my opinion, highly of you. So I'll just leave that where it's at.
Thanks, man. That means a lot. You're gonna make me cry. But anyways, all right, bro. So where do you want to start with your stories here?
I'd like to start, like I told you, one of the most fascinating stories I've heard is about you and the possible dogman that, where the coyotes try to lure you out. And that is so fascinating to me. I've heard your story. I never get tired of it. And when I was a little kid, I myself had an experience that it was mid-late 80s. I was about 12, 13. And I used to go out into the woods a lot and everything else. I was just one of those kids, that home life wasn't so great. So I spent a lot of time out in the woods. And long story short, I used to like wading through creeks, looking for turtles, snakes, and, anything that was out there. And I was going through this creek one day, early afternoon, maybe just past noon or something like that. It was still early. And I heard a noise on a tree. And, at first I ignored it. I heard it a couple of times more. So I finally turned around. I'm thinking I'm going to see a squirrel or something like that. And I turned around and I couldn't really, at first I knew where the sound was coming from originally. And about 150 feet away or so, I saw this little white thing in a tree. And I'm like, okay, so that got my curiosity going. So I'm looking at it and I'm looking, and then I really start looking at it. And I realized it was a little monkey, for lack of a better term. I guess when it comes down to it, to me, I don't have the best recollection because, that was so many years ago and that's giving my age away. But but it looked like a kind of like a little chimp, like kind of like a little white chimp. And it was coming down the tree downhill. And it had stopped and it was looking at me once it realized that I had turned around to look at it. And truthfully, I didn't really know what to make of it because, I was still a little kid. I had never been introduced to cryptids. I hadn't heard anything about that. I hadn't even heard of Bigfoot, Sasquatch, or anything along those lines. And I live in Maryland, as you know, and there's no way that a baby monkey is going to survive, especially in those years through a cold winter in Maryland. There's no food, that there really aren't any fruits or anything out there. So unless it's being fed, it's how's it going to survive and how's it going to survive through a winter? So obviously all those things I didn't know as a kid, but so I just looked at it and once we both made eye contact, because I could tell we were both just staring at each other, it actually went around the tree the same way that a squirrel would. And it, just being a little kid, because didn't seem dangerous for me. It was about 2 feet long or something like that. So I walked towards the tree, got out of the creek, walked towards the tree, and I walked around the whole tree, and it wasn't there anymore. Now, I can't tell you what happened, if it went into a hole, if it jumped to another tree, and I didn't see it. But I never had any of those feelings that people talk about where I was scared and I could feel something watching me or anything. It was just I sometimes think it was just two little kids that ran into each other. Because I was a little kid and whatever this animal was, because I'm not going to tell you that it was a Sasquatch because I can't prove to anybody that it's a Sasquatch. Whatever it was, he was young, I was young, and we just ran into each other in the woods somehow, and that's that's all that really happened. And I talked to my brother about it, my older brother, and I was like, so I saw this thing in the woods, and I don't really know what it was. He basically just told me it was probably just a squirrel, man. I'm like,
That's probably just a squirrel.
that's a pretty big squirrel, right?
Yeah.
And white squirrels are extremely rare, but you know how albino animals have like the really light skin and the reddish eyes and all that stuff?
Yeah.
As far as I can recollect, it didn't look to me like an albino. It just looked like a white animal to me because I don't remember exactly what color it was, but I know that it wasn't like pale, pale. The
Mm-hmm.
the hair or
Like the
fur,
pink skin.
right? Like the hair or the fur, whatever you want to call it, whatever it is, it was white, but the skin wasn't red because I dealt with like a lot about the white mice and stuff that are albinos and stuff because I used to have snakes.
Yeah.
And it didn't look like it was an albino of any sort. It just looked like an animal that was white with the fur and hair. That's what it was. And I left it at that for so many years. When I got older, I finally picked up a book that talked about Bigfoot and stuff like that. And to me, Bigfoot was is one creature that somehow just lived in the Pacific Northwest somewhere. And that was it. There was only one, you know? But as I got into it more and more, as I grew up finally, and we'll jump way ahead, probably in like 2021, want to say in the fall of 2021. By then, I had gotten to listen to podcasts and stuff like that. And I started hearing all this stuff about Bigfoot. And then that finally clicked in my head. And like, is that what I saw? Because nothing else can explain to me. And then I heard about the white Bigfoot that a lot of people have seen in Pennsylvania, which is not far from
Yeah.
from where I grew up. So I'm like, okay, so what's going on with this thing? And I got really into it, and then my own silliness got me into call blasting because where I used to live, By then I was about 50, 60 miles away from where I grew up. And I started call blasting into the backwoods. There was a creek about 400 meters behind the property where I lived on, and it ran out to this river that's called the Potomac River, which is a pretty big river that's got a corridor all the way into Ohio, and everything goes into some really deep woods into West Virginia. It leads you basically right into the woods, and a lot of animals use that as a trail to move back and forth. Coyotes have really populated the area because they have that means to move back and forth. And again, sorry if I go on too long, but so after this call blasting that I started, nothing really happened, but I would say a few months later, and this is the weird thing, because I had kept going and going and nothing would happen. But as I told you, I get up really early for work because I'm usually pretty far away from work. So I get up early. I got the dogs to feed and everything else like that. And the dogs I've always preferred are German Shepherds. And now I have German blood German Shepherds, which are actual working dogs just to protect my kid and stuff like that. And
Good dogs.
they are. And I also had a Dogo Argentino, which unfortunately he's passed, but that's, pretty tough dogs. Pretty tough dogs, both of them. And both of these dogs had already dealt with the coyotes. They had chased off a bear before and everything else. So not dogs that are just going to back down. And I would let them out before I left for work. And this one time we're going off the back porch and the dogs wouldn't move. Just would not move. I'm like, okay, what's going on? So back in that creek area, a little bit to the left, I heard chimp sounds. Like, how chimps go, I'm not going to make a fool of myself and mimic them. But basically, it sounded like chimps, but it wasn't like it was just one chimp going off and making a vocalization. It was like two chimps. Like one said something to another and the other one answered back. And I could hear them. And the dogs, when I had come out, they were already looking in that direction. But, these are things that obviously hindsight being 2020. Now I can look back and say, okay, that's why they were looking in that direction and all. And but I can tell you those dogs would not go off the porch. Would not go off the porch, man. And I can tell you probably if an actual chimp, like a real chimp, was running through the backyard, those two fools would have probably taken off after it. I mean, that's the kind of dogs they were. But like as soon as they stepped out, they wouldn't do it. They just stopped. And even though I had called them out onto the yard, they wouldn't move. They would not move. And then we heard that sound, and I was like, all right, well, you got doggy doors, so you'll go out when you need to go out. Left, went to work, didn't worry about it. In about a week or 2 weeks later at the most, I don't remember exactly, we were already in bed. And something woke me up. And when I woke up, all I could hear was this sound of something beating on wood, like somebody was trying to chop a tree down or something. And when you're waking up, you're not exactly 100% or anything like that. So I start to wake up really and start to listen, and I realized it was tree knocks. But what made me realize that it wasn't like somebody framing something up, because it was like right around midnight or maybe a little bit past midnight, and there's nobody really doing that kind of work up that late. Most people are usually considerate, so nobody's going to be chopping a tree down at midnight.
I would hope so.
Or working on a building or anything like that. But it was rhythmic because it would do 3 hits like slowly, like it would go and then it would go really fast. Like I'm like, okay, even if I have a stick or a baseball bat, whatever I have in my hand and I'm beating on something, it's gonna take so much strength and muscle to be able to beat on something as quick as that was doing, to make it as loud as it was doing it. Because sure, I could mimic that motion, really quick, but not with the strength that it was being done with. Because like I said, it woke me up. And the dogs that I have are trained for protection, so I'm thinking to myself, okay, well, first of all, in the area where we live, you're going to get shot because everybody's got, you know, weapons out there. They target shoot, they get ready for hunting season, stuff like that. So you got to have some sort of issue if you're coming out there that late at night and, you're just going to start waking everybody up. And second of all, even the neighbors, all the people around knew my dogs. They were friendly, but they knew that they basically needed permission to come up at night, or at least let us know that they were coming, so the dogs aren't going to react the way they're trained to react. Because they'll
Yeah.
stop you real quick. But these dogs, they weren't growling, they weren't barking. Like if somebody came to the door, they're not going to be the ones that start barking and barking. They'll give a few barks just to let you know, okay, we know you're here. But they're trained, they're not scared, so they're not going to be like those dogs who just go to the door and bark and bark and bark unless you command them to do so. So they'll bark to give warning barks, and that's it. And then they're going to wait for the next step. Dogs weren't doing anything. And they have little beds next to my bed. Because, I love my dogs, so they're always with me wherever I go. And I look at the dogs, man. And the male shepherd that I had is, 100. He's trying to bury. Uh, okay. And
Oh
all
no.
the dogs were like that because we had a couple of females too. All the dogs were like that. Like there's nothing that these dogs want to do about it. It's not like I could have said, okay, let's go outside and we'll see, who's running around in the woods and we'll handle this. These dogs wanted nothing to do with that, and you could just see it in their demeanor. And dogs like these are not dogs that normally react like that, So that gave me a minute to pause, and I'm like, well, you know what? I'm going to record this. And I grabbed the phone on the nightstand, and as soon as I do, all the noise stops, like immediately. Like, because I went to look for the app to get the camera on. It immediately stopped, so I can't record anything. And I'm like, well, that's a little weird. And as I start to put it back down, then I finally heard the noise again, but it was a lot further away when it happened again. And I recorded it, and unfortunately, I couldn't get clear enough sound because I sent it to somebody to see if they could clear it up, and they couldn't because it just picked up all the ambient sound. Like I said, I was literally in my room in the bed, and this was happening outside, so I wasn't able, obviously, with just a phone to be able to capture any of the actual sounds that I was listening the way I was hearing them. And at that point, and this is one of those things I can't explain, all my hair just stood up. Like I said, all my dogs clearly are afraid and don't want anything to do, and all my hair just stood up. I've never been able to explain why it happened. I know I was scared. I don't know why I got scared. I hadn't seen anything, didn't know what was out there. All I heard was the noise, and the fear that came over me. To me, it was unnatural. It was like I shouldn't be scared of a noise outside, and that's the best I can do with my maybe cryptid experience. I don't know what it was.
Honestly, it has all the attributes for a cryptid or mainly Bigfoot, obviously, especially with the tree knocks. But I don't know if you know Alexander Petikoff, but he was telling me he was on the show almost 2 years ago. I think it was 2 years ago. He was telling me about how animals that we do know that science recognizes have the ability to infrasound, so they can affect other animals, and whatnot. So like elephants have it, gorillas have it. So if Bigfoot is I don't know, like a missing link or some form of monkey slash human, if you believe in the evolution theory, that is, to say that they don't have infrasound is, I don't know, I guess kind of is interesting, because the fact that I don't think that them having infrasound is out of the realm of possibilities. Is basically what I'm trying to say. So when I was out in Tennessee recently, and we were doing a Sasquatch kind of like hunt, my buddy Riley, I'm 100% sure that he was getting the infrasound on him, where he started getting scared too. His hair was standing up, and it affected him physically and emotionally. And actually, it affected a few people, and it was only this one particular area. So to me, the attributes are there for sure. Obviously, you didn't see anything, so you can't say for 100%. It's just like my dogman experience that you were talking about, where all I saw was eyes. I couldn't tell if it could, for all I know, it could have been an owl that was sitting there that scared the crap out of me, But it seemed big. Right, like I could tell that it was behind the boulder just by the way that the shadows and stuff were perpetuating off the rocks and off the trees and through the trees, I should say. So like it seemed big, but again, like I can't ever say, I'll never say 100% that it was a dog man. I just say possibly, just from all the things that I know about it. But going back to the one when you were a kid, you go up to the tree and you go around the tree where it was and it's gone, right? So we saw, again, back out in Tennessee, last month, we saw a figure on the thermal camera. It was a human looking figure not far from us, and we sat there and watched it for a minute. It wasn't really moving, but it was lit up with a heat signature. And so we all turn our lights on and we run to the specific tree that it was near, and nothing's there. It's gone. So to me, that gives like the aspect of interdimensional or spiritual. Like maybe it like if it's to be like, say it's a ghost, like say all the Bigfoots are just like dead Nephilim from back in the day, and they just kind of like pop in. Their spirits are just like, hey, I'm here for the minute. Not saying that that's exactly what they are, but just like as to paint a picture. But they just like they blink in and they're here, and then they cause all this like mayhem, and then they're like, all right, I'm gone now, like, see you later. But like to be right in front of that tree, and then for us to within seconds to be on that tree and it not be there and we not hear anything, run away or something like that, it's a wonder for sure. It is. But yeah, man, I would say the tributes are there for a cryptid for sure, especially with it affecting the dogs.
That's the one thing that I could rationalize it in so many other ways, and just say it was me that whatever, I just woke up and something startled me, so I get scared. I could rationalize it in so many ways. The one thing I can't rationalize away is how the dogs reacted both times to simply the sound, because like I said, I mean, my dogs had already chased off a black bear, and obviously a black bear is not, a grizzly that's going to turn around and face off a whole pack like, uh, you know, like they would. But it's still enough that, the average dog will bark, but it's not going to take into a black bear. A dog's normally going to back off of a black bear once the bear turns and stands its ground. It knows it's going to get hurt. These dogs were willing to go toe to toe with the bear. So if my dogs are, which is the biggest predator we have, other than maybe a cougar here and there, that we have here, why would they back off from any other natural animal that's in the woods? That's that's what gets me, is like it's a like
Mm-hmm.
they just knew, okay, this is not the fight we're looking for, and this is not a fight we're gonna get into, because and I could command them to go and do anything other thing, but they weren't having no part of that. So that's one of the things that, to me, like you said, I I don't know what obviously Bigfoot is, but I'm not gonna ever say that it's just flesh and blood. Because if it was just flesh and blood, I mean, even a grizzly, there are dogs that will hunt down grizzlies, chase them. I'm not saying that they can kill them, but in a pack, they will chase them down. Wolves will turn around and fight off grizzlies off of a kill or to defend their pups. So animals can deal with animals. I'm not saying that they can overpower it, but most animals will have to face off against another natural animal at some point in time, and they can deal with it. Sasquatch is the one thing that nobody wants. Even bears, there's stories about bears that run away from once they pick up their scent or whatever. Personally, I think that there's a little bit more to it than just being an undiscovered monkey that's running around in the woods still. That, of course, is my humble opinion.
I would agree. I think I would agree. Again, like you said, I don't know exactly what Bigfoot is, but with the number of sightings, not saying that not all of them are credible, obviously. I think some people use it for attention. But I do think that a lot of the stories that I've heard and that I've come across have sounded pretty like legit, especially when you hear them talking and they get emotional about it. Like that to me, like if they give me goosebumps, like your story kind of gave me a little like goosebumps on the back of my neck there. Like that like tingly feeling that you get on the back of your neck when something sounds real and kind of creepy. That's kind of like what I was getting, but um yeah, man. So I can speculate. I can say what I can say what I want it to be. I want him to be an interdimensional alien that kind of like says, I'm here sometimes and sometimes I'm not here. I'm in another place, but
But then, it goes into the orbs too. Why are they seen normally before it or after it? And what in the world does a ball of light have to do with some large monkey walking through the woods? As a matter of fact, my brother-in-law, they live in Michigan because that's where he's from originally. He's got 180 acres that they bought just for him to go hunt, and he's caught orbs on his game cam. And he sent them to me because, my sister laughs at me when I tell her about Bigfoot, but he's from Michigan. He grew up in Michigan, so he takes it a lot more seriously. So he sent me a couple of pictures of just these balls of light flying by the game cams, and like, what the heck is that? And I asked him, have you seen anything else out there? And he said, no, there haven't been any reported sightings recently up here, so I haven't seen anything, but he sent me that stuff. When I was in the military, I had a friend of mine from Montana that told me a story about when he was a kid, around 16, going out hunting with his friend. They were just going to go get some squirrels, for dinner. So they had a big farm, a big cattle farm, and they walked quite a bit off to get into the woods to look for squirrels. Took two dogs, a German Shepherd and a little mutt that he said he had. And when they were getting to the woodline, he said something roared at them. And the German Shepherd turned around, ran back home, and he said the little mutt ran into the tree line. Him and his friend obviously turned around because all they had was 22 rifles, so they turned around and started running back to the house. They told their dad, so him and his older brothers, get higher caliber rifles, 308s and whatever else they had, and some shotguns, and they go back out there, to see, okay, what's going on here, because they have cattle. So his dad was concerned about what's out here roaring, because is it a bear or whatever it is, right? And he said they got out there, they obviously didn't find anything, and they were looking for their other dog, and they found the dog in a tree. And basically, he said the way it was killed, like the jaw of the dog was just basically like it was like just split open.
my gosh.
And it looked like it was split open, and they just put him high up in a tree. He said he was like, I don't want to misquote him. I think he said he was like 12 or 14 feet up in the nook of a tree, a branch, and he was just draped over the branch. So, and like he himself said, I didn't see what did it because we weren't sticking around to see what was going to roar at us like that. But we don't see a bear doing that kind of stuff. So,
yeah, bear would have just ate it.
Yeah. So there's a lot of stuff in my life where I know these things are real. I know they're out there. What they are, I don't know.
Mhm. Absolutely. Absolutely, man. Which actually, bringing up Michigan, that might be a place that we go out and hunt. We might be going out to the LBL, maybe. I don't know if I'm gonna join Drewski and the team yet because Michigan's awfully far from Maine, but um, but we'll see. We'll see. I've always wanted to go out to the LBL as soon as I've started learning about cryptids and dogman and stuff. Dogman definitely fast. Bigfoot fascinates me, but dogman fascinates me a lot as well. Mainly because of my experience that I think is a dogman. That's really what entices my my fascination with it. But I've always, as soon as once I started hearing the stories out of the LBL, I was like, I want to go there someday. So hopefully I can if they do the hunt out there. But we shall see. And then you'll know all the stories because I'll talk about it right on the podcast. Whatever happens out there is gonna be right on here.
Well, I've seen your
So,
posts about your last trip on Instagram, and so yeah, LBL trip would definitely be interesting. I was actually at the LBL. I mean, I was originally stationed at Fort Campbell.
oh,
That's where
were
I
you?
was. So unknowingly, I mean, and now I've heard so many stories about other people at Fort Campbell that had run-ins with a dogman, and I'm like, I am so grateful that I never ran into that thing because I don't know what the heck I would have. I mean,
Mm.
that just now that I know it's out there, okay, if I saw one, I'm not gonna tell you I wouldn't be scared, but at least I know where to put it in my mind. If I was just out there in the middle of the night on some of the exercises we used to do for training out there, I'd be like, what in the heck is that now? And it just, who knows what it would have done to my mindset at that time, running into something like that.
Yeah, and that actually reminds me of a Merkel episode where he was talking to a service member and they were doing a training exercise. I can't remember where the hell he said he was, but they were out in the woods and he encountered a dog man.
Yeah, it's like, what do you do with that? Because most of the time, especially when we're doing training exercise, you got blanks. So what? I'm gonna just, make make
Yeah.
noise at you. It's like I might just upset it enough to come take my head off or something.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh man, but 100%, I don't ever want to actually have a like up close and personal experience with a dog man. Like what I had, just seeing eyes, that's perfectly fine with me. I don't necessarily need to see it, but um I mean, I think when it comes to cryptids, I think some of them are experimental and were created. Others are just natural. Like I think Bigfoot would be one of the like I guess natural, spiritual, interdimensional beings, and where I think Dogman might have been created by possibly government,
Yeah,
maybe.
that there's so much spiritual stuff in that too as well that I mean it's not
Yeah,
even funny, and that there's no way that I can give a definition for what these things are because they're
yeah,
they're both physical most of the time, and then you have that thing where they do things that you can't possibly define within the physical world. So,
absolutely.
I just leave.
Like the stories of Dogman possibly flying, not really flying, but like jumping from tree to tree, up like to the up on the tops of the trees where he's just running across the tops of the trees. Like I've heard a couple stories about that, which is interesting. To be like a 300-pound frickin' 400-pound animal going across the top of the trees. I don't know if I believe those stories, but still, like if that's real and people actually saw that happening, like that's interesting. That is spiritual for sure.
The one thing I've realized throughout my life and through my own experiences that reality is a lot stranger than fiction can ever possibly dream up.
Absolutely, absolutely. Um, Especially once you start going down like you could go down like the simulation theory. But not that I'm not saying that this is a simulation, although they supposedly found evidence that we might be living in a simulation. But I will say that I think over time, especially the further away that society gets from God, the more we become disconnected from things that we could do. Like I think we could set a frequency to do things that we can't do now. I think that there's like, and I say this 100 times. I said this in my last recording, which the episode isn't out yet, but I love Theo Vaughn so much. He's hilarious naturally. And he says off the cuff stuff, but there's one thing that he said on Joe Rogan's podcast that resonates with me a lot, and I bring it up a lot. And he said, do you think that the wind is trying to tell us something that we don't know how to hear anymore? And Joe Rogan just goes, no. And he presented it like a joke, but to me, I feel like he was also trying to be real and sincere. Like, we used to be able to do things spiritually with our vibration and our frequency.
Frequency, right?
Yeah, and we can't anymore because we've become so disconnected, and we've been guided into this life of consumerism, you know.
Right. I mean, if since we're talking about this and you brought it up, I'll bring this up too. I mean, look at the pyramids. Who can build one of those pyramids right now? 100-ton stone, perfectly rectangular. Nobody can get those things up there. I know for a fact that there was a company in China that tried to reproduce a smaller scale one, and they couldn't do it. And this is with the machines that we have right now, the cranes that do all these things right now. They couldn't do it. Yet, there's so many experiments that have been done now that are beginning to realize that through frequency you can levitate weight, period. It doesn't matter what it is, but you can levitate things just through sound, and so you have to start looking at how all these things were built. There was a civilization that clearly knew a lot more than this current civilization does, and I touch on that because you just said we've become disconnected from God and what we were supposed to be. And I think a lot of that also leads to a lot of the ability to realize what's around us, like you said, and how to actually function and do things, because a lot of these things can be done naturally. I mean, you can get electricity out of thin air, literally, by just lifting a copper wire up and grounding it. If you have the ability, you can charge a battery with it, and it's just there. But they're telling us no, we need. I know that Tesla was working on something now about how to bring electricity indoors by doing stuff like that. And well, obviously the guy's not around anymore, so wonder why. Free energy? Nah, you can't have free energy. So, before I go off the deep end and start going down this road, though, but see, you'll get me started at those tops, and we'll be here all night.
I love it. I love it. Well, Joey, let's go into this then. Let's talk about your testimony into coming to God. I know you brought it up. You brought it up in your email. You struggled with some mental health issues as well as me. So we connect through that. So we have similarities there. So yeah, if you wanna share that aspect, that I'd love to talk to you about that.
Absolutely. We'll start with how I began to understand that there was a spiritual world that because most of us, we don't really worry about it, think about it, because we can't see it, we don't interact with it, so we don't think about it. And in my early 20s, I got together with this girl I really liked, and just being kids, stuff like that, we liked each other enough that we moved in together. And I'm going through this kind of quickly, so if you have any questions, just don't hesitate to stop me. So we had moved in together finally after a few months, and I've always had the dog, so I had a really big German Shepherd at that time, and she had like this little terrier mix, really cute little dog. So my idea was to keep him in the apartment for a little bit so he could get used to me without bringing my big dog that was going to scare him. So by the time my dog did come in, he could at least come to me and hide behind me or till he got comfortable. And same thing, had a little bed had for him next to my bed on my side, and so we're sleeping this one night, and I wake up and it's probably like 1 o'clock or something like that. And I don't know, again, it's one of those things. I don't know why I woke up. So this is, what I was saying about previously with the whole possible Sasquatch thing. It's like it just something, it wasn't the noise, something woke me up, and I just knew something wasn't right. So I looked down at the dog. The dog's fully awake, right? And he's not up, but he's still down, but he's up, like his head's up, his ears are up, and everything, right? And he's looking because the bedroom, we always slept with the door open, and it was a straight shot down the hallway to the front door. And his ears are up. So I'm thinking, okay, he's hearing something, might just be people coming home late or something like that, because obviously that happens. But he gets up and starts walking to the door cautiously. And he turns around to fully face the open door. And then the dog starts growling. And I'm like, okay. And then he really, like, all his hair goes up, and this dog is growling for all he's worth. And mind you, this is only like a little 30-pound dog or something, And he's growling, just trying to do his best to stand up whatever he's looking at in the hallway. And so now, my heart starts racing because now I'm like, okay, what's going on? And this dog literally starts to back up into the room, and his tail goes between his legs, and he goes down, and he's growling and just growling. And I'm thinking, oh God, somebody broke into the apartment, and because it wasn't exactly the best place where we lived at, so now I got to handle this, right? So I jump out of bed, I leap out of bed, and I'm running because I figure, the person's not in here, I can still catch them off guard, and we can handle our business in the hallway. This was my thinking anyway. So as I'm running out into the hallway, I turn around, on a turn, I knew where the lights was watched for the hallway. I turned that on, nothing. Absolutely nothing.
Whoa.
So I grabbed what I needed to be able to take care of myself at that time, and I cleared the whole apartment. We had a 2-bedroom apartment and everything else. I even went out to the balcony. We checked all the doors and everything. Nothing. And the dog's walking with me, and now he's perfectly fine. I could never understand what made him react like that. So at that point, we come back into the room, and my girlfriend, she's up, and I'm like telling her somebody broke in or something. So she's kind of, a little scared. Do we need to call the cops? And I said, we're good. I can't find anybody in the apartment. The dog's fine again. So I'm like, well, because I don't know how to explain that. And she says, well, maybe it was my guardian angel. And I look at her and I said, what do you mean it could be your guardian angel? And she says, well, I practice Wiccan, and a lot of times at night when I wake up, there's an old man standing at the bed of my bed. And I'm looking at her now like, excuse me? And she's like, yeah, and that's my guardian angel. I'm like, it doesn't necessarily feel like a guardian angel to me, I said, especially if it's scaring the dog, half to death and me. And I said, and why in the heck didn't you ever tell me that this is what you practice? And at that point on, I can't tell you that I was the most religious person or anything else like that. I knew of God, but I didn't know him. So, I take it in stride because of her looks. I hate to say it, but that was my own vanity. Just being honest. Just being honest.
Hey man, years ago I would have been the same way. I would have been, we men are visual creatures. We tend to go what attracts us visually, and a lot of times we find out that it's not necessarily the best thing for us.
Exactly. But so, tells me this is what she practices, and I'm like, all right, whatever. Because I don't really have any knowledge of the spiritual world or anything, so I just roll with it.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, whatever. We end up moving into this townhouse uh, eventually, and now we have both of our dogs and everything else. And same thing, I get this creepy feeling sometimes at the house. I would come down, I get up early, I would come down to the middle level of the townhouse and where the kitchen was to make some coffee and get my stuff and go to work. And cabinets would be open, dishes would be on the floors, that sort of stuff. And I'm like, okay. The dogs, a lot
She's
of.
got a poltergeist. She has an attachment. That's what this is starting to sound like, but
Yeah.
sorry to interrupt.
No, you're good, man. So, in the dogs, like, I know dogs are loyal and they always want to be with you, but my dog was really independent. Like, see, he was perfectly fine going downstairs, laying by himself or laying somewhere else when he was with me. But once we got into that house and she was there, like, as soon as I was home, he would never leave my side. And you would always get that creepy feeling because both of them would sometimes, even if we were like in the living room watching TV or something, they would just turn and look at a corner and just stare. And I'm like, "What are you guys looking at?" And I'm like, "Let's go." And then
Oh my
it would it
God,
would
I hate
it
that.
would creep me out enough that I'd be like, "Okay, let's go somewhere else. Come on, let's go outside or go use the bathroom or
Yeah.
something," because I didn't know how to deal with any of that stuff at that time. And down at the bottom floor, we had the garage, and behind the garage, we had a big room that was basically empty. We were just young kids, so we didn't have that much stuff anyway. So we had some boxes and stuff in there. And sometimes we would go back there. But the dogs, you could just, like a couple of times, they would walk into the room and their hair would just go up, and you could just sense that, like, they would go back out and, like, lay down in front of the door or something and just wait for me. And they didn't want to be in there. And when I was in there, like, my hair would stand up. It was just the creepy feeling that I would get. So eventually it gets to the point where I would come down and the garage light would be on where my truck was. And I'd be like, I know I turned that light off last night. And it kept going and going, right? So I'm like, I would make sure that I turned it off. Now it's got a motion sensor. You know how the little I don't know motor. It's got a light on it for the garage doors where the chain.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's got a light on it,
Yep.
and a lot of them have motion detectors on them too. Not all of them, but some do. So they'll come on just by detecting the motion. So one day I figure, you know what, I'm going to figure this out, right? I get up early, I'm not doing anything, and I just go downstairs. I tell the dogs to wait on the top of the steps for me. And I'm sitting like halfway down the steps just staring at this garage, right? And it's earlier than what I would normally get up. And all of a sudden I see the light come on. And then because it was a floor down there, I could see a shadow that walked by the door. I could see the shadow when it was blocked out, blocking out the light when it walked by the door. So I'm
Like
like,
under the crack of the
yeah,
door
yeah,
on the
like
floor.
the very
Yeah, yeah.
bottom. So I'm like, so I call him down and I'm like, let's go see who's in the garage. And of course, I run in there and there's nothing in there. There's absolutely nothing,
Oh my
nobody or anything
gosh.
in the garage. And this had just kept going on and building up. Eventually, we get to the point where I'm basically like, I've had enough of this because this is creeping me out. This is creeping the dogs out. And it finally kind of slowed down a little bit. Slowed down for a couple of months. I hadn't really seen, heard anything. The dogs hadn't reacted to me. And so we're sitting on the couch with this girl. We're watching TV. I don't even know what we were watching. And for whatever reason, we're talking, and I turn on her and I tell her, well, I said, at, at least I think we're alone now. You know, I haven't seen anything, heard anything, and the dogs seem to be okay. And this girl turns around, looks at me, dead in my eyes, man. Both of us, eyes locked. She looks at me and just says, no, that's just what you think. And that
What?
creeped me out. I was like, no. I'm like, I'm not okay with this. Truthfully, about a week later, we broke up. I was like, I had enough of this. I said, you can have the house. I said, me and the dogs were gone. I'm not. I didn't sign
You
up.
took her dog too?
Yes, I took her dog. That sounds horrible, but I'm like, look, they're friends,
Oh,
man. You can't
obviously,
separate them.
yeah. I mean, obviously, her dog was scared too.
Yeah,
Jeez.
I took her dog, and yeah, that sounds horrible. I mean, but what's more horrible is she was willing to just give him up like that. Like if she asked me for my dog, I'd be like over my dead body. But she's like,
Yeah.
fine, take the dog. I'm like, yeah, I'll take both of them with me.
That's wild.
Yeah, that was some crazy stuff with that, and that's what introduced me into all the paranormal stuff, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's creepy. That's I don't know if my dog hasn't gotten anything like to the point where I was super creeped out like that, and nobody has ever talked to me like that. Oh, that's what you think. Oh, or that's my guardian angel, but my dog is scared of it. Like, what?
Yeah.
They're guardian angel, but like the dogs are supposed to be able to see spirits, and your dog's growling at it and getting scared of it. That kind of like that indicates something nefarious to me, in my opinion. And she's just like, "Oh, it's my guardian angel." Come on.
Yeah, it does to me as well. But for then after that, for a good while, nothing. I didn't really have any experience or anything else like that. By that time, uh I was in the military, stuff like that. I deployed, came back home. I married a wonderful woman, and when she was pregnant, she was probably about 6 months pregnant. My sister, both my sisters actually were in the military as well, and they were both at Fort Bragg in North Carolina. So for the
Ooh.
holidays, they invited us down there to, for the family to come get together, hang out. So everybody met at my one sister's house, the one who had the bigger house. And she's like, well, since your wife's friend and you guys can have the bigger room upstairs. And we're like, okay, thank you, blah, blah, blah. We go up there, and it was just the creepiest house, just the creepiest house. Like, I did not, it was just one of those same things. Like, you go upstairs and, like, your hair would just stand up, and it's like, there's nothing here. I'm not seeing anything. And why is everybody else sleeping downstairs? Why are we the only ones upstairs? Right? So, like, okay, somebody knows something here that I don't know. And so it goes on like that. That was my first introduction to that house. And
Well, I apologize for interrupting my own podcast, but I am here to tell you if you stick around to the end, you will get a preview of my other podcast that I am doing for members only on Patreon. That's patreon.com/weirdos only. The podcast is called Keep Digging. You can also find it on Spotify. And if you become a member, you can click on the our members only RSS feed and put it in whatever podcatcher you listen on. So, if you like what you hear and you decide to become a member, it's $5 a month, pretty inexpensive. You get a free coffee mug, early access to the regular shows. You don't get the ads and you don't get the intros. You just literally get the the conversation. So if that entices you, cool. If it doesn't, no bother, but still stay tuned to the end and check out the preview. Thank you.
house, and after that, um, we went home. We came back once my daughter had been born. We come back for another round of holidays and stuff. And my baby, she's only a few months old at this point. And now we get the master bedroom upstairs, which they didn't sleep in the master bedroom upstairs, by the way. So we get the master bedroom upstairs, right? Because it's got a bathroom now that we got a little kid in case we need the bathroom for whatever, washing or anything, right? So I'm like, okay, well, thank you. Still, we're the only ones upstairs, right? I'm like, why are we still the only ones upstairs? And so, we go to sleep, and my job included me being up at night, late at night, basically all night most of the time. So I was used to getting up, and I'll admit it, moms usually do most of the work with the babies. So I would get up in the middle of the night to change my daughter, feed her, and all that stuff, so my wife could actually get a good night's rest, right? And so I woke up, I heard my daughter, and at that time, like any little tiny noise would just wake me up. I was just used to it. So I wake up, I'm immediately on her, and I'm gotta warm up the bottle and all that stuff and get her changed out and everything. So, but they had given us like a little folding bed that we had made like a wall of pillows and blankets so she wouldn't roll off. So I'm getting ready to change her diaper. I do what I gotta do, get everything ready to clean her and all that stuff. And since there was no night light there, because we needed a night light to be able to get up and see her and all this stuff, I had left the bathroom light on because it was bright, but it wasn't so bright that we couldn't sleep with it. It was just enough that, it gave us light. And as I got my back to this bathroom, my daughter's, laying here in front of me, and I'm taking her diaper off, cleaning her up and everything, getting the next one ready. And this shadow basically like blocks out the whole light. And my hair, again, this is what I'm saying. My hair just immediately stands up, and I can sense that there's something behind me now. But by this time, I've been in the military, I've been through a lot. I have some sense of what I'm doing, and I know what I'm capable of. So, okay, I'm like, don't freak out. I'm gonna change my daughter, put her diaper on like nothing's going on, and then I'm gonna turn around and address this real quick. So I do this, and I mean, if you look at me, I'm just casually like, folding the little flaps on the diaper and everything. Like I don't see anything, like I don't sense anything. And as soon as her diaper's on and I know she's good, where she won't roll into another soiled diaper or anything, as soon as I know she's good, and I got the other one all bundled up, I just turn. I mean, as fast as I possibly could, I turn, and that shadow's gone just like that. Had that been a human being, there's no way on the face of this world, this planet, or anything that a human being could have ran out of the room or ran back into the bathroom where I wouldn't at least have seen a limb, a leg, something that disappeared. And I walked into the bathroom, nothing there, and then I took my daughter and I was like, no, I'm not playing this game. So I put her in between her mom and I basically stayed awake the whole night. I couldn't go back to sleep then. And I just stayed there staring at the bathroom the rest of the night. And as time went on, then, I started hearing stories from the rest of my family. My other sister that didn't live there used to babysit my nephew when he was little in that same house, and she said she wouldn't go upstairs. She said it just creeps me out so much for whatever reason. And she said one time that my nephew, when he was little, had crawled up to the top of the steps. So she was trying to get him to come down, and he wouldn't come down. And she said she went up there to get him. But when she was getting closer to the top of the steps, she said her legs just gave out. And she's like, I can't tell you what happened to me. All I can tell you is my legs just stopped working. And all she could do at that time, she said, was she reached up for my nephew, grabbed him by the leg, and like pulled him down onto her lap. And she said, I literally slid down the steps to get away from the
Whoa.
upper floor. And that's all I could think to do because my legs just wouldn't work.
My goodness.
My sister-in-law said she was coming down from upstairs one time too, and she had and mind you, these steps are fully enclosed with carpet and everything, so you can't reach through them like you could like on some basement steps or anything. Fully enclosed steps. She said when she was coming down one time, she had a hand, and she said it felt like a hand because they felt like fingers that grabbed my leg as I was coming down the steps, and she yelled and almost fell down the steps, and everybody came running, and there were a lot of experiences like that in that house. And after that, I was like, no, you know what? I'll go stay in my other sister's apartment if we're gonna come visit next time. I'm like, I'm done with that. I don't need any of that either. And I have no idea what was going on there, but there was definitely a presence there that was not welcome.
Wow, dude. That's why first of all, to have it completely block out the light while you're changing the baby from behind, that in itself is like nightmare fuel, dude.
It was because it just, I mean, you can, like even if somebody else walks behind you, most people can sense when somebody walks up behind you, right? Like if they spend
Mm-hmm.
it there, if they spend enough time looking at you from behind, you can sense it. That was like immediately, I could just sense a presence behind me. And what more vulnerable position can I be in where I got my baby here, and I got a handful of soiled diaper. I mean, I,
Yeah.
it's like that. I mean,
It whatever it was wanted you to know it was there.
yes, it did.
Whether it had malicious intent or not, it wanted you to understand that it was there.
It did. That was clear. I mean, there's a couple of other things that happened there, but I'll keep going on with the rest because the other things are, very similar things like that, and those I
Mm-hmm.
would say were basically the major dramatic stuff that happened at home. There were other little things that happened and stuff like that, but so moving on, we get to a point where, and this is where, I thank you for being so open, and it allows me to be so open about this because um, I came home like a lot of other guys with issues, and after I came home, we had my daughter, everything was fine, but because of the kind of job that I did in the military, my wife asked me to leave the military because I had a daughter to raise and she wanted to make sure that I was around to be a dad. So I did get out of the military, and that's when a lot of the issues start for a lot of veterans. Once you leave what you know, then you don't really have that support group around you, your friends or anybody else. So I took unfortunately, a pretty steep spiral down, and we weren't necessarily doing so good for quite a while. So eventually, my head fell into a lot of depression. I felt like I wasn't anybody anymore. I didn't have an identity. I didn't do anything. All I did was get up, go to work, get up, go to work, and make sure that my family had what they needed. And I know that may be hard for some people to understand, but the military kind of builds a brotherhood that when you go through something like war, then it's hard to relate to everybody else after that. And like at the people at
Mm-hmm.
work, I couldn't relate to them. I couldn't relate to anybody else. So I was really going through some dark roads at that time, and I began to contemplate suicide, and that was not something I'm proud of, but I admit it now because I talk about it more openly now because if it can help any other veteran, and for that matter, anybody else that's ever thought that it doesn't make you a weak person. At that time, I thought I was weak because that's the mentality I had. I realize now that it's just something you're going through. It doesn't make you weak, and the fact that you're fighting it and enduring through it and persevering through it, that actually makes you at times a stronger person. But I got to a point where I tried to make a serious attempt on my life. I took all the meds I was on from all the injuries and everything else and the depression, all that stuff, and I just combined them all in one bottle and I said, today's the day I'm doing this. Took that, took a 12 pack of beer and my gun, I headed out into the woods and I said, I'm not coming back. I took every pill in those bottles, started on the alcohol, and thank the good Lord that knocked me out enough that I didn't get to the third step that I had planned. But I basically ended up falling down this huge ravine in the mountains where I was, and for whatever reason, um, the DNR police saw my car there, stopped, and realized something was wrong because it was already late at night and stuff. And thank the good Lord, they found me at the bottom of this ravine. And as they were bringing me up, Apparently, my heart stopped, and they had to stop to bring me back a couple of times. I was taken by ambulance to the closest hospital, and that hospital was unable to deal with the severe condition I had gotten myself into. So they had to medevac me to a more famous hospital, which I don't want to mention, that's in Baltimore, just so nobody actually puts two and two together as to who I am in that sense. And a few days later, I finally came back, and I spent a week in ICU and about 3 weeks in recovery. The doctor told me that my core temperature had already dropped to 80 degrees and that he had never seen anybody come back from that without any actual permanent damage. And he couldn't explain why I was still there the way I was. They told me that I was going to have issues walking because of the severe injuries I took in the fall. And I was too stubborn, so I started doing squats on the side of my bed to let him know I wasn't going to be that guy. But while I was going through all that in the hospital, and this is why I know that all these things are spiritual, man, is I don't know how to explain it or what it means that I was that close to crossing the line, but I would see like a curtain, like if you're looking at like a TV that's, it's got static on it, where it's just got those black dots on it and stuff.
Yeah.
I would see a curtain like that, and then I would see faces press themselves into it, like right next to me, and I had things telling me to kill myself. And said, "You weren't meant to live. You need to kill yourself." Nobody. I mean, they would just tell me the most horrible things, and I would see these things appear in my room, and I don't know who to talk to or what to say, because I didn't know if, okay, is this really just in my mind or is this really happening? And it went on through that whole phase while I was in the hospital, and it kept going to the extent that I'll tell you, I do electrical work commercially, so I'm around a lot of really big power systems and high voltage. And when I would get around these systems, for some reason, I could see the same, I could almost see the energy coming off the equipment, and that's something I don't know how to explain. But I could see these things, and I would see things through this. Like I don't know how to explain it. You know how they talk about the predator, where you can like kind of see the shape, but you don't really see it
Yeah.
when it's cloaked. And it was like that, like because I could see the energy, I could see these things, but I couldn't really see them. And that it just began to make my mind really spin and think, what am I doing here? What am I seeing? Am I going crazy? Is this something that did I damage my brain? Is this brain damage that I can see these things now? And I didn't know who do you go to talk to about something like that? If I talk to anybody about something like that, they're just going to tell me that I need to go back on meds. And that's the one thing I didn't want to do. I didn't want to go back on meds. So I struggled with it alone, and I kept going. And I was like, you know what? I didn't do it right the first time, and I just need to get it done right this time. And like I said, I was having a lot of issues with my wife. We were struggling, and life basically was just overwhelming me. And I'm like, you know what? They're better off with the life insurance. So I walk off into the woods again. Except this time I didn't leave because they had found me because of the car the first time. I said, I walked like an hour out into the mountains. I found this creek that I knew was there, and I started going up this creek because I know that even dogs can track me after being in the water for so long, they'll lose the scent. And it was still cold, so I'm getting numb as I go, and I get to this outcropping that I finally saw, and I get under this rock where I think nobody's gonna find me, no thermal, no nothing. I do have some military training, obviously, so I'm taking all these things into account, and I'm like, I'm just gonna do it here. And I kept my feet in the water. I said, when I'm numb enough, I'm gonna do what I gotta do, and nobody's ever gonna find me. Nobody's ever gonna know, and I won't even feel it because I'll be so cold and numb that I won't feel it. And as I was sitting there waiting to do this, and people can believe this or not, but I had a vision, and I don't know how to explain that other than I had a vision of what my kid's life was going to be without me. It affected me enough that I realized I couldn't do that to my daughter, and I was not being the man that I was supposed to be. And I got up and I hiked my hour and a half back out of those woods. Who knows if there was a dogman or a Bigfoot next to me walking me out, but I walked back out, got to the parking lot. And I had literally walked there. There was no car, no nothing there, and there was a park ranger there who saw me come out of the woods. And it was a woman. She actually got startled and was actually kind of scared at first when, here's some dude just walking out of the woods in the middle of the night. And she's like, "You all right, sir?" And I'm like, "I could actually use your help if you don't mind." And she's like, "Did you get lost? What happened?" I said, "Yeah, I got a little lost, but," I said, "I'm good now." I said, "If I could just make a phone call and call my wife to pick me up." And while I was waiting for my wife, um, she said, "I never park in the woods. I never park in these parking lots because there's nobody ever around," she said, "and something just made me come up here tonight." And the really sad thing about all that is that at that time, my wife and I had been arguing so much that when she got a phone call for me to go pick her up in the woods, she even called my sister and said, he asked me to come pick him up in the woods. This is where we're going to be. This is the parking lot I'm going to. And if I don't come back, then this is where I'm going. Because she actually was to the point where she thought I would do something to her. And that's how messed up I was, man. I would never lay a hand on my wife or my child or anybody else like that. It didn't deserve it. But that's just the point we had gotten to in our lives. And we separated for a while. I had to man up. I went through a lot of counseling, a lot of stuff that I needed to go through, and treatments, stuff like that for PTSD. But it wasn't. It was making a lot of progress. It was helping, but our relationship wasn't getting any better, and that's what was eating away at me still. But I knew I couldn't do the same things that I had previously attempted. So I basically started to think about, okay, I need to change my life because clearly what I'm doing is not working. What I'm doing is not helping the people I love. Has driven them away, and it's not healthy for me either. And in the middle of all this, I was a foreman for a fairly prominent uh, company in my area. Made decent money. I can't complain, but I was always gone. I was gone 6 days a week, however many hours they needed me there. And one time, my daughter's obviously much older by then. She was assigned to another project. I had to catch up really quick because they were having a lot of problems on this job. So they gave me the prints, and I'm sitting downstairs in the basement on an iPad, uh, going over this stuff. And like I said, we weren't living together, but I would still come over a lot to see my kid because I didn't want her to ever think that her dad just up and left her. And I'm grateful that, my wife put up with that, with me, I mean, that woman's a saint. But so my kid comes downstairs and says, "Hey, Dad, do you want to go outside and play?" And I didn't really even look at her. I just said, "No, honey, I got too much work to do. I can't. So I got to get this done because I gotta know what I'm doing when I get to this job." And my kid just sat down by the couch and just stared at me without saying another word. And she probably sat there like 10 or 15 minutes while I'm going through all these prints and everything else and reading and trying to catch up on all this. And then eventually just walked away without saying anything. And that is probably one of the most powerful moments in my life also, man, as I realized I wasn't the father I was supposed to be. And so I talked to my company and I said, "Look, I don't want to run work anymore. I'm not gonna do this anymore because it's affecting my personal life, it's affecting my family, and I'm not gonna do it anymore. So they weren't happy with it, but obviously there's nothing they can do about it. And at that point, they still kept a lot of pressure on me because obviously I've been a foreman for them for so many years, and they still relied on me for the stuff that I had already brought them up to speed on that job and everything else. And it was just overwhelming because, you know, I got so much pressure at work, I got so much pressure at home, and I knew I didn't want to go down down that road that I had already traveled. So I told them I was going to quit, and I talked to another company. Because of my experience, they were willing to give me a job, but the way I work, if I quit from one company because we're union, then I have to basically sit down for so many weeks before I can go to work for somebody else because it's voluntary. And that's what they did to me. But you know, I'm paying the mortgage and for everything else, and then also got a little studio apartment that I'm trying to pay for myself while we're separated and all this stuff. And pretty soon, you know, the money's gone, and I'm just really desperate. And I finally, that's when I finally started reaching out, and I started to look for God. And I said, you know, my dad always talked about you. Sorry.
You're
So,
good, man.
so I said, so where are you at now that I need you? But something in me was just burning because I knew I had absolutely no other option. I had nothing in this world I could rely on. And this is where things get strange again. As I start going through this process of trying to figure out God, I start reading the Bible. I start trying to understand really all the things that I've ever rejected. Now I'm looking for them. And I started to get nightly visitations from things I never even knew existed. I don't know how familiar you are with how dreams at times aren't really dreams, but you kind of just step into the spiritual realm.
Yeah.
So I would have these entities that would come in, and a lot of times they would choke me, like you know, like put their hands around my throat and start choking me, and they wouldn't release me, and I could until I could clamor out the name of Jesus Christ, you know, and ask for his help, and then they would eventually leave me alone. But the thing is that a couple of times I woke up with bruises around my neck. So these things are spiritual yet still physical because it was still affecting my physical body. So many times I woke up barely able to breathe, you know, and you could feel the compression that had been on my neck went on like this. And you know, that's when I really started to understand the spiritual war that is actually going on in this world. And that's when I really, really dove myself into scripture. And I really started to understand, okay, if these things are real, I've never been attacked by these things before, but now that I'm looking for God and reading the Bible, now you're attacking me?
Mm-hmm.
So then I started to really get into the Word, to begin to understand. I started fasting and praying. I really started to grow in faith, thankfully. And the attacks just became stronger, but I wasn't willing to go back then because I knew the truth then. I know that if you're here and attacking me because I'm reading this book, there's something to this book. It's not just a book anymore because you don't want me reading it. You don't want me understanding it. And now you're physically attacking me. So when they couldn't overcome that, they went after my kid. And the way I found out was my daughter eventually asked me one day that I was over. She said, Dad, what are shadow figures? And I'm like, why are you asking me that question? She's like, because I kind of went on YouTube to look at this stuff, she said, and it's the same thing that I see now. This is in my home with my baby, you know, and she's like, I see them looking at me around the corner and this and that, and you know, I didn't know what to do at that time, you know. I mean, How do you protect your child from something like that? And she's technically, other than God, the only reason why I'm alive. He's the one that gave me the vision, or her that made me walk out of the woods that one night. So if I'm willing to endure all this and keep going, how do I keep her safe now? So, the attacks keep going with me, and I grew up in faith and everything else. And eventually, my daughter tells me, Dad, something grabbed my leg last night. So my daughter started sleeping with her mother. And she's a teenager, sleeping with her mom because she's scared, and she was maybe not quite a teenager. So now I'm faced with this reality. And as a man, I can't protect my child. I'm struggling with work because, I got backed up on money and all this other stuff. I'm not even at home or anything like that. I mean, I was pretty much at the bottom of the bottom. And you know how people say, how did you come to Christ, man? I didn't come to Christ in the church, man. I was on the floor, robbing like a little baby, asking him for help. And I told him, I'll give you my life if you protect my little girl. So I made a date to get baptized. And I told him, I will never turn from you. And within those days before I got baptized, by then I knew scripture, I knew the word, I had been reading it. I don't know if this was a vision or what. I know it's spiritual. I can't describe it to you exactly what it was, if I was actually there or what the heck was. But I had a encounter with what I thought was my daughter. And it was something like we were having a discussion, and she was walking away from me, so I was going to put my hand on her shoulder and tell her we're not done yet. But when I touched her shoulder and she turns around, it's the spitting image of my daughter. Everything, body, clothes, and everything. But the face, it was a horse's face. And it's just looking at me. So I stepped back because I'm startled, and I rebuked it in Jesus' name. And it just stood there and it looked at me and said, you don't have the faith to rebuke me. At that point, all I could draw on is, thank the good Lord, was in scripture. He said, that may be so, but God has commanded that every knee will bow to Jesus and every mouth will confess he's Lord, to the glory of God the Father. And on that, I rebuke you. And it turned around and left.
Hmm.
And once I did eventually get baptized, all that stuff stopped.
Wow.
My daughter doesn't ever mention anything like that. She doesn't even remember it. And I always tell people is I can't prove the existence of God to you. I can't show him to you. I can't call him and say, hey, can you talk to them real quick? But how do you explain my life? How do you explain any of that? And
Yeah.
since that, a lot of the other experiences I've had now is with UFOs.
UFOs, of course. Well, let me before you get into any of that, first of all, I'm glad you're still here, man. You deserve to be here. You deserve to breathe the life that he gave you. Um, and you deserve the blessings. And I'm grateful that you decided to stick around. I will say it's interesting that you chose to go to nature, which is in my opinion, is the most evidence of God's existence. And then the fact that you got this vision, and then you come out of the woods, and this woman who is never in this part of the park is there to help you. That speaks something to me a lot. So thanks for fucking making me cry. That's what I'm gonna say first and foremost. But yeah, I'm super glad that you're here. Uh, so I want to ask. I'm assuming because you're not saying ex-wife that you guys are together.
It's never going to be what it was again. And she's told me that for right now, for the sake of my daughter, we're together. Eventually every relationship gets to where you're just friends. That whole passion of your youth is gone. We're already, she's in her 50s, I'm almost 50 myself. Relationships progress.
Yeah,
It's
I
okay.
get that, man. I get that.
You know, at the very least, I can say I have a friend. I have a friend I can trust. I have a friend that if I really need something, I can ask. And if she really needs something, you know, I'll always have her back.
Good, man. Good. I like that. Shit. That's a heavy story. It's to me, obviously it was a spiritual attack. You know, anytime you start a lot of people that they start their mind and their heart start opening to Jesus Christ, and um it seems like they get attacked. Like my son, he started talking about God and his belief in God. And I didn't really take it this way until probably the other day, but he started coming to God probably almost a little over a year ago now. And around the same time, probably about maybe 2 months after or so ish, when he started talking about it and wanting a Bible and whatnot, he started breaking out in these like weird rashes. It's never happened before in his entire life. And we've been battling this rash for a really long time. It's eczema. We were pretty sure it was eczema. And it just gets, it's progressively have gotten worse over the year. Um, and I almost wonder if, I need to do the same thing. Because obviously I'm on the cusp still. I want to get baptized. I have not. Um, I do believe in him. I believe in I want that relationship, and he's starting to get better as of right now. But when I thought about it the other day, it was I don't believe in coincidences anymore. I think everything happens for a reason. Um, but the fact that he starts he creates a TikTok and he starts posting scripture on his TikTok, and then within a couple months later he starts breaking out in this rash, and it's like literally covering his whole body right now. It's from his neck, like right here, all the way to his knees, covered. So,
I, I've
um,
I've heard you talking about your son and how you had said in previous episodes how he's you know, looking for God and everything else. And I I haven't heard you talk about that before until now. I don't know if you have, if I just missed it, but I I can promise you that I'll keep you and your son in my prayers now that I know, you know.
thanks, man. I appreciate that. I appreciate that a lot. Yeah. It, I mean, because I always just assumed eczema, Um, and then like this past like 2 or 3 weeks, it's like so bad, it's super red, and I know he's uncomfortable, and it bothers me that he's uncomfortable, and I just want him to be able to be, like any other 16-year-old kid. It's almost summer. I want him to be able to go outside and take his shirt off or whatever, and not have these big old red blotches all over his body. Um, and since they get dry, they get cracked, and he starts scratching at it, and I try and keep him moisturized, but even like the last week, the moisturizer didn't seem to be doing anything. But we do think it's an allergy, and it seems to be the allergy medicine seems to be doing something as of right now. So we'll see. But I do think that I want to pray on it as well. The first time I ever prayed was when my youngest daughter was the day that she was born. I don't know if you heard this story. I've talked about it on the podcast too, where it seemed like so her heart rate kept dropping, and we didn't know, she kept having to move. So once she moved into a certain position, the heart rate would come back. So we weren't sure if it was either she was just losing rhythm on her own, like something was wrong with her heart or something, or if it was just the way she was laying in
In the womb,
the machine. The machine wasn't
incubate.
picking up on it. Yeah. Yeah. So I went into the bathroom and I looked at myself in the mirror, and then I prayed, and I prayed that, I was like, I've never prayed before. I apologize for that. And I need you now, and I just want everything to be okay. If you could give that to me, I will do anything for you. That's like pretty much what I said. Maybe not exactly the word for word, but the gist, you know what I mean? And then they came in and they're like, well, we're gonna try and get this baby out. And a couple hours later, she was out and healthy and alive. Yeah, put whatever you want on that, listeners. Yeah, so. But thank you for sharing your testimony, dude. It hit me pretty hard.
The reason I chose to be so open with you, because I've told my Sasquatch story before and stuff like that and stuff, but the reason I'm willing to be so open with you is because you're a very open person and you haven't held anything back. And that, I feel, it benefits, even if it's just one person out there that hears it, and it benefits that. And that, says a lot about you. And what you just said about, how you apologized to God for not ever reaching out to him until you were in need. I think a lot of people have a misunderstanding of him still, like I did. I did most of my life. Here I am, in my late 40s before I start talking to him and asking him for help. And what was it? I didn't just say in one day, hey man, how's it going? No, it was like, I need help. I didn't come to him and say, hi. No, it was just, I need you. I need help. I think the easiest way I can put it to people is just like you did. Now that you're a father, you have two beautiful children. And I'm sure, especially with your son being older, I'm sure that especially if you have a girl, wait till she becomes a teenager. They act up, they act up, and sometimes you just want to wring their little necks, right? But you love them. And which one of your kids will do something that just upsets you to no end at one point, but God forbid that something happens to them and they get hurt and they come right back around after you're about ready to kill them. That little kid comes back in, they're hurt or whatever, God forbid, and they ask you for help. As a father, which one of them are you going to turn away?
Neither.
You wouldn't, because you're their father. And it's the same thing with God. It's like, we've been stubborn, we've been rebellious, we haven't needed anything, like any other teenager, basically. Don't need you, don't want you, leave me alone, I'm gonna slam the door in your face. But when you're hurt, I mean, if he died on a cross for us, he already loves us. All he's waiting is for us to turn around and reach out for his hand and his help. Because he's been waiting there this whole time. I heard you say before, I believe it was to Todd, that you said, if there's one of us here, it's because God felt this world needed us. One of us here. And that's truly what I believe. He doesn't make mistakes. We don't understand how he works and how everything around us works, but he doesn't make mistakes. And if we're here for a purpose. Your show, man, what you're doing, especially how honest you are about mental health and everything else, how do you know that there's somebody out there that may not ever reach out to you, but something you said made a difference? If I'm willing to come on your podcast because of how you talk, that hopefully my story can reach somebody else, man, I can promise you, you're making a difference, brother.
Thanks.
We're all doing his work one way or another, whether we see it or not. He's going to use what he's got to use, and he's going to do what he's got to do to get his purpose across. And
yeah. That's got my whole body shivered. Oh, man. Dude, I'm so glad to be talking to you.
Appreciate it.
All right, man. Well, first of all, thank you for not only sharing an intimate part of your life, but also the kind words that you've shared with me tonight. I do. So let's go into these UFO experiences.
Okay, well, the funny thing is that I hadn't really had anything to do with these things either until same thing, until I really started to look for God, and once I got truly gave my life to Him.
Hmm.
A couple of times now, I have seen what people I heard people talk about these huge black triangular things flying through the sky, but they're massive. Like I had gone to visit a friend in an apartment, and as I was coming out, I just, the stars were blocked out. So I looked up, and they're dark enough that you got to actually stop and look, but then you can actually see a shape. And it was just going over, no sound, no nothing. And this thing was massive. I can't give you it was dark enough, and I had no reference in the blackness of the sky. But I'm looking up, and there were two guys outside smoking. And they looked at me and it's like, what are you looking at? I'm like, I just pointed up and it's like, what? Because they saw it too. And they're like, what in the world is that? So they saw it too. And I've seen a lot of strange lights in the sky lately that, they're flying across and then they just start zigzagging and doing like 90-degree turns. And you're like, that ain't no plane.
That's not right.
That's not, that's not normal. And
Mm-hmm.
I've seen lights, and truthfully, I've gotten to the point, honestly, where I've seen these lights going when they should be a lot lower, and I know they're not stars or planes, and I've rebuked it, and have watched these things just literally disappear. Like they turn off, they just fade away. I don't know how to describe it. It just disappears when I rebuked it in the Lord's name. Now, one of the couple of the really weird ones is now I've seen this over my house, and I've seen this over my sister's house because I come here a lot to help take care of my mom as well. I don't know if you've heard him talk about these oval, like egg-shaped, I don't know if they're
Mm-hmm.
crafts, but they're silver. And I've literally seen them like hovering hundreds of feet over my house. But both times that I've seen them and I turn around with my phone to try to get the camera up, it's like they just shoot up into the sky at a speed you can't even explain, and just it's gone.
Like they know you're about to get evidence of them. Yeah.
Right, which
That's
goes
interesting.
back to the whole Bigfoot thing. It's like, how does something outside beating on a tree, if we're going to say it's just some big monkey beating on a tree, how do you know as soon as I pick up my phone? You can't see me. I don't have any lights on. How do you know to stop when I pick up my phone? So how does this thing know when as soon as I reach in my pocket to grab my phone, because I'm just doing yard work, listening to a podcast or something, and as soon as I realize it's there, I stop. I reach for the phone, and then same thing, it's gone.
Damn, son.
And that's twice that I've seen them now.
Wow. And that was these are recent?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Jeez. I've always wanted to see some kind of UFO, and I don't think I've ever well, there was this one time recently, probably actually not recently, but it might have been fall, back in the fall, where I saw this like weird, like it looked like a building up in the sky, like a city building. It was full of lights, but it could have been the International Space Station, because I know that's fairly big with a ton of lights on it. And I was following it. I was looking at it while I was driving on the highway, and then as I pulled the truck off the highway to my exit, and I'm trying to watch it, I go underneath the toll booth, and as I come out the other side, I couldn't find it. I couldn't see it. I was like, where the fuck did it go? So that's like the only thing that I can possibly say is a UFO, but I've always wanted to see something that I could be like, yes, that is not that's not a man-made thing. That is weird.
To me, I mean, those things are. I don't know if you've heard all the theories about aliens and all that other stuff. Me personally, with no offense to anybody else, I don't believe that there's such things extraterrestrial. They're extraterrestrial in the thing that they're not natural to this world. But if you really look at it, the same thing. I mean, there was a director for MUFON that came out and actually said that they wouldn't publish it, but he came out eventually in his own story saying that he had documented stories of people that were about to be abducted and they were able to rebuke these things in the name of Jesus Christ. You know?
Yeah.
So
There's a ton of stories like that of people rebuking them and they listen.
exactly. Now let me tell you something. If you get in between a black bear and its cubs, I can tell you for a fact you could probably rebuke it in the Lord's name all you want. It's still gonna be after you and it's gonna take you down. I hate to say it, but more than likely, the odds are you're still gonna be taken down by that bear. Why is it that all these things respond to the Lord's name?
Mm-hmm.
Scott Carpenter, I believe, also had stories before he passed away about people of faith being able to rebuke a Sasquatch attack. There was one. I'll have to find the details. I'll send it
I've
to you.
heard that too.
You know, I don't. Scott Carpenter doesn't strike me the way he was as somebody that's going to go around telling lies or something he doesn't believe in. That he's did the research, talked to these people, and all these things that we think are physical, yet there's a spiritual side to it. Why is it that all these things you can rebuke in the Lord's name?
Mm-hmm.
Let's say
Exactly.
somebody's going to attack my child and I'm going to punch them in the face. They can rebuke me in the Lord's name. It doesn't mean that I'm not going to punch them in the face. If they're doing something to my kid, just a silly example, right?
Yeah.
But we're spiritual, but not in that sense. So there's a lot more to it than what people say. And once you really start putting two and two together, you realize all these things are combined because they all act the same. They all have the same strangeness to them.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah. I definitely put them in the same category as like a Bigfoot, where I think they're just coming from one dimension to another. Like I'm not thinking that they're coming from a galaxy far, far away and they traveled all the way here just to look at us, you know what I mean? Like I think they're just hopping from each realm, I guess is the best way I could describe it.
I think I agree with that a lot more than any other theory because if you think about it, okay, human beings with a firearm, we can go into the woods and pretty much control any animal that's out there, any known
Mhm.
natural animal. We can control it with a firearm. Cows, anything else, we can domesticate. Even dogs, we came from wolves. We've domesticated them. We've trained them. They're our friends now. We have dominion over everything else, and we're only human beings. A Sasquatch is considerably more powerful than us, and supposedly with the dogmen, they've been shot and they don't go down, right? Now let's talk about something like an alien. That's a lot of people think is such an advanced civilization. They don't have to hide. They don't have to ask for permission to take us to do whatever experiment they want to do on us. So if there's an actual civilization of these beings, what would stop them from being able to come here and just say, okay, well, you're our slaves now, done. And nothing you can do
Mhm.
about it because military planes can't catch them. They can't shoot them down.
Mhm.
I think truthfully, it's just part of what the fallen angels have done before is they trade one thing for technology. They wanted women previously. They gave humanity technology back then, and it's no different now. For whatever reason, they're using human beings to procreate whatever it is they're procreating, and who knows what they trade with the government for our right to do that. So they technically
Mhm.
have a right to do what they're doing because they've been given permission by humanity to do what they're doing. So they can always say, well, God, he signed it. I mean, look at it. You saw it. It's legally a binding contract, right? But if you're a person of faith, why can you rebuke it in his name?
Exactly. Exactly. That's what I'm talking about.
In my
That is what I'm talking about. Yeah. No, dude, I'm right there with you. I always found it odd. Like as soon as I started hearing, there's a lot of stories, and then people also say the only like a lot of faith-based people will say that aliens are just demons. That's why you can rebuke them. You know what I mean? And I'm like, well, who's to say that demons aren't aliens? Like Like, and the concept of aliens is, like I said a minute ago, like that they're beings from another galaxy, from another planet far, far away, and they're coming here to visit us to, observe and report and blah, 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 blah. So I feel like when people say that they're demons, that they're just, they're putting that hat to it, which I'm not saying that demons aren't real. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that, like, I think there's just, I mean, Bigfoot could be a demon, technically, and if you put that tag on it like that, but I don't know. It's interesting. Things get really weird, a lot weirder than a fictional book, that's for sure.
Definitely. That's why I said, reality is stranger than fiction.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Oh man, so this has been probably one of my favorite conversations that I've had in a long time. Not saying that I dislike any of the conversations that I've had on here, but I've really enjoyed your company, man, and I really
Likewise.
appreciate you coming on and giving us some of your time. I really do appreciate it. We're almost at 2 hours, and it feels like 5 minutes, honestly. But yeah. So we're gonna nip this in the butt here, and I will ask you one more question after. How do I want to phrase this? After you started picking up the pieces to where your life is now, do you feel like you are being fulfilled in the now that you've been baptized and all that?
110%. For all the things that I've gone through, I can tell you that I heard you talking with Todd about anxiety and all these other things. And I still get stressed out about things, but I have a peace in my heart that I've never had before. Not ever in my whole life before. All my thoughts of taking my life are gone. All the pains that I still hurt as a human being and stuff, but it's like somebody's got your back no matter what you're going through, and that kind of love you can't fake. You can't. There's nothing else in this world that can give you that kind of feeling. It filled a hole that I had always had in my life, and I never knew what it was. But I think a lot of us have that hole because we don't know him. And once you do know him and you are in a relationship with him, he fills that hole. And like he said, ask and you shall receive. I'm not rich. I don't have a perfect life, but the things that I need, I have. I don't lack anything, and I'm actually happy for a first time in my life, genuinely. So
Dope, man. That makes me happy. I'm happy for you, bro.
thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Oh man. All right. So for the listeners, that is today's show. So happy that you joined us. But if you don't mind, if you like today's show or any of my other shows, please like, follow, share, subscribe, leave a rating and a review. Those are the free and easiest ways to help support the show and help the show grow. And also, if your podcatcher doesn't allow you to leave a review or a rating, you can do so on the website where the weird ones are podcast.com. There you can get merch, hot sauce, coffee, supplements, all that stuff. I also have been writing some short stories. They're in the blog section. So check that out if you're interested. But other than that, it's been a good one. Joey, thanks again, man. It's been a wonderful conversation. And I know people are somebody out there is going to definitely resonate with it and it's going to mean something to them. I know it. I can feel it in my bones. So thank you for being vulnerable tonight and sharing your testimony. I absolutely cherish it.
Thank you so much for taking the time to have me.
Absolutely. All right, guys, you know the drill. Question everything and stay weird. There are places where the ground feels heavier
under your feet, where the wind doesn't just pass by, it whispers. Places that never make the headlines, but where stories grow like weeds between cracks in the pavement. Places where everyone seems to know everything until something happens that nobody will talk about. That's where we're going tonight. A town you've probably never heard of, a story that doesn't fit in the box, somewhere between forgotten roads and fields that stretch forever. Something once stirred. Something still stirs. We don't have all the answers. We're not sure anyone does. But we're going to follow the trail as far as it takes us. So keep your light low, keep your steps quiet, and whatever you do, keep digging.
This concludes our broadcast day. Click.
Because in the end, none of us have very long on this earth. Life is fleeting. And if you're ever distressed, cast your eyes to the summer sky. When the stars are strung across the velvety night, and when a shooting star streaks through the blackness, turning night into day, make a wish.